And I see that kind of stuff almost every day in my life, and I now sort of count on it. And I'm not surprised by it, but it's just a confirmation for me that God is in my life, and that, it's not an abstraction, that it's real, and that...
Many know Robert F. Kennedy Jr. as a fierce environmental activist, an author, and a champion of public health. But behind the headlines, there's another side of him, a side many don't even know.
I'm doing something difficult, and that I should be, I need to be grateful for that and never feel like a victim, and never feel self-pity, and never...
He's a man who faced unimaginable tragedy, his family's suffering broadcasted for the world to see. So, what drives someone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to believe in God and surrender his life to Him?
Within a year after my dad's death, I was addicted to heroin. I was addicted for 14 years. I quit when I was 28 years old, and during that period, when I was in early recovery, is when all of these things started to make sense to me.
Today, we'll explore his personal journey, how he found faith, and came to understand that his salvation rests in the hands of the one who loved us first. Before we dive in, make sure to like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and leave a comment showing your support for Robert F. Kennedy Jr. At the end of the video, I'll share my reflections on his story, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Now, let's dive in.
Period when I was in early recovery is when all of these things started to make sense to me. My Catholic upbringing, all of this confluence of philosophy and theology and self-examination and pain that you go through. We grow through pain. Pain is ultimately the touchstone of spiritual growth. And addicts have a unique opportunity for redemption because they've been to hell. It destroys your life, and it destroys your relationships, and it hurts everybody that you love, and it makes you into a liar. Whenever you're living against conscience, which you're doing if you're addicted, you push God over the periphery of your horizon. So there is a complete disconnection. Said that we should turn our lives into a prayer, and so that we're in conscious contact with God every waking moment of the day, and not just, pray by rote in the morning or at night, but to turn everything we do when we're eating, when we're exercising, when we're doing our work, and all of that should be performed as a prayer. And I try to do that. I try to keep God close to me all the time, and to continue to maintain that posture of surrender. I got sober when I was 28 years old in 1983. I came in really broken, and I surrendered to my God at that point, to a higher power of my understanding. But my inclination, like I think most of us, is that when the chips are down, God is very, very present for us, and we're willing to do what we have to do, and to invite Him into our lives and to surrender to His will. But then when, life starts getting good again, which my life went from being very, very small when I was an addict to very big, very quickly. And my inclination when the cash and prizes start flowing in is to say, thank you, God, I got it from here. And then take the wheels of the car and drive it off the cliff again, and then have to come in on my knees again. And the challenge is, how do you stay in that posture of surrender even when everything is going well in your life? And that's the challenge, because so much of addiction is about abuse of power, and so much of the temptations of life and the bad paths we go down are all about following self-will, and about all of us are given, some power in our lives. And it may be good looks, it may be athletic ability, it may be wealth, it may be connections, it may be education. But do we make that asset serve a greater purpose, which is God's will. I feel like I was like a one-dimensional human being, that I was a collection of appetites that needed to be fed all the time, and that becomes a full-time job. When I finally got sober, I came in, with my life wrecked, and I came in on my knees, and I made a decision. I knew I needed a spiritual realignment. And then I picked up this book by Carl Jung called Synchronicity. It was a kind of synchronicity that it was sitting on a table. And synchronicity is a coincidence. It's like one of those things that happens to all of us when we start noticing them. It happens more often. An example would be you're talking about somebody who you haven't seen or thought about in 20 years. And the phone rings and it's that person on the phone. And these little things happen to us all the time, right? And Jung saw those as interventions by God who would reach through the universe and break all of his own rules, the rules of mathematics, arithmetic, of percentages of chance, and of time and space, would reach through and do these little things to touch us on the shoulder and kind of say, I'm here, you're looking at a miracle. And what he says is that I can't use empirical tools and scientific tools to prove the existence of a God, but that I can prove that, having seen tens of thousands of patients come through his hospital, that people who believe in God get better faster and that their recovery is more durable and enduring. And for me, reading that was much more impactful than if he had said that he had proven the existence of a God, which I would not have believed.
Right.
What he was saying was, it's irrelevant if there's a God up there or not. If you believe in one, your chances of living a healthier life and of recovery are better, and it's an easier path. And at that point in my life, I had made a vow that I would do anything at all, if it increased my chance of recovery by even 1%. But I made a decision, I'm going to start believing in God because it's going to improve my chance of recovery. And then I'm confronted with the dilemma of how do you start believing in something that you can't see or smell or touch or taste or hear or acquire with your senses. And Jung solves that problem by saying, fake it till you make it, act as if. And he said, the faith will precede the evidence, that there will be evidence that will be overwhelming. I immediately, while I was reading this book, I just said, okay, this is the answer. So I'm just going to start pretending there's a God up there, that he's looking at me all the time, and that life is kind of a test, and that, we're supposed to do the right thing, and I'm supposed to behave myself even when I don't have an audience, so even when nobody's watching me. The day I finished that book, I went out on a volleyball field. I was playing volleyball, and somebody hit the ball on a very, very powerful punch. It went way up, and then it came down and hit the top of the post, and it made this errant flight back up again. And as it was relaunching, I said, so that everybody on the field heard me, I said, that ball is going to get hit by a Mack truck. I don't know why I said that. I have no idea, but everybody heard me say it. And the ball went up and landed on a chain link fence, and then it bounced on the other side, and it rolled down about 40 yards into a main thoroughfare. And this giant 18-wheel diesel came by and popped it with just a resounding pop. And everybody looked at me for a second, or like, wow, how'd you do that? Oh, at that point, I had just finished this book about synchronicity. And I was like, okay, I can either just dismiss that the way that I would as a weird coincidence, or I can just say that, this is God's way of talking to me, and I'm going to accept that, and I'm going to accept the beauty of it.
As we listen to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. share his journey, we are reminded of a powerful truth. Faith isn't just about what we believe when life is easy. It's about what we hold on to when everything around us seems to be falling apart. Kennedy's story isn't just a tale of addiction, struggle, and loss. It's a story of redemption. He describes a moment in his life when he hit rock bottom, when pain and brokenness seemed like the only reality. And yet, it was in that darkness that he found the light of God, a light that wasn't abstract, but real, tangible, and present. We all face moments where life feels overwhelming, where we question the purpose of our suffering. Kennedy's experience shows us that it's precisely in those moments that God can reach us the deepest. As he says, pain becomes the touchdown of spiritual growth. It's through the hardest trials that we are shaped and refined, just as gold is purified in fire. But perhaps the most striking lesson we can take from his story is the power of surrender. So many of us struggle with control, trying to hold the wheel of our lives in our hands. Kennedy admits that when things started to go well again, his natural inclination was to take back control, to say, "Thanks, God, I've got this." But he quickly learned the danger of that mindset. True faith doesn't just rely on God when we're at our lowest. It's about trusting Him even when life is on the up, maintaining that posture of surrender in both the good and the bad. Kennedy also speaks of the importance of acting as if, believing in God even before we see tangible evidence. It's a challenge we all face. Faith isn't always about having proof. It's about choosing to believe even when we can't touch, see, or fully understand. And as Kennedy discovered, when we choose to believe, when we act as if, something shifts. Our perspective changes, and what we once thought was a coincidence becomes a divine intervention. His story encourages us to look beyond the visible, to trust in what we cannot see, and rely on a God who is always there, even in the moments when we don't feel His presence. As we reflect on Kennedy's journey, let it remind us that faith is not a destination. It's a process, a continuous surrender, a daily walk with God, and a willingness to see His hand in every part of our lives. Let's ask ourselves today, how can we surrender more fully to God? Not just in our pain, but in our joy as well. And how can we allow our faith to be the foundation of our lives, no matter what comes our way? If Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s journey has inspired you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who might need to hear it. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos that dive deep into stories of faith, redemption, and transformation. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of Kennedy's story resonated with you the most? Leave a comment below, and let's keep this conversation going. Remember, your story matters, and together, we can continue to grow in faith. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.